The transport ship landed on the moon with a heavy thud. Park felt the vibration travel through her boots and up her spine. She grabbed her bag and stood up. Through the small window, she could see the Galactic Coalition Training Academy. It was a massive building made of dark metal and glass. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of worlds came here to become soldiers. And now, for the first time, humans had been invited. Stepped off the ship and felt something strange. She felt light. The gravity here was weaker than Earth. She took a few steps and almost bounced. Behind her, laughed quietly. "Feels like walking on the moon," he said. "We are on a moon," Lee replied. She was already looking around, studying everything with sharp eyes. "Stay focused. Everyone is watching us." She was right. Noticed the stairs immediately. Aliens of all shapes and sizes stood in groups near the landing zone. Some were tall with blue scales and 4 arms. Some were thin and graceful with silver skin that seemed to glow. Some were small and quick with large dark eyes. All of them were looking at the 3 humans like they were strange animals in a zoo. Kept her face calm. She had expected this. Earth was new to the galactic community. Humans had only made contact with alien life 20 years ago. To most species out here, humans were a mystery. A small, soft, strange species from a planet that scared everyone. Earth was classified as a Category 7. Had learned what that meant during her preparation for this mission. It meant that Earth was considered one of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy. The gravity was heavy. The weather was violent. The animals were deadly. The plants could poison you. And the humans, they had survived all of it. But the aliens did not see survivors when they looked at. They saw a small woman with black hair and tired eyes. They saw thin arms and soft skin. They saw weakness. A loud horn sounded across the landing zone. The recruits began to move toward a large open area near the main building. Walked within. They stayed close together. They did not speak. They did not need to. In the open area, a massive alien stood waiting. His skin was dark blue and covered in thick scales. He had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. His eyes were yellow and cold. He wore the uniform of a sergeant, and his voice was like thunder when he spoke. "I am Sergeant," he said. "You are here because you believe you are strong. You believe you are fast. You believe you are smart. I am here to show you that you are wrong." The recruits stood in silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed too loud. Sergeant walked slowly through the rows of recruits. His heavy boots made the ground shake with each step. He stopped in front of a tall with silver skin. The stood straight and proud. "You said, what world are you from?" "Lithos Prime, Sergeant," the alien answered. "Good, stable gravity, mild climate, soft breezes and clean water." Moved on. He stopped in front of a small with large eyes and thin limbs. "And you?" "Cora, Sergeant." "Low gravity, underground cities. Your people have never seen a storm." Continued walking. Then he stopped in front of. He looked down at her. She looked up at him. Neither of them blinked. "Human," said. The word sounded like an insult. "Earth." "Yes," Sergeant said. Her voice was steady. Stared at her for a long moment. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Category 7, heavy gravity, extreme temperatures, predators everywhere. And yet," he looked at her arms, her legs, her small frame, "you look like you would break in a light wind." Some of the other recruits laughed, did not react. Leaned closer. "I give you 3 days, human, maybe 4. Then you will go home crying to your dangerous little planet." Said nothing, she just held his gaze. Snorted and moved on. The inspection continued. Later in the barracks, the 3 humans found their assigned room. It was small and plain. 3 beds, 3 lockers, 1 window. Closed the door and checked the room for listening devices. She found 2 and disabled them with a small tool from her pocket. "They are already watching us," she said. "Of course they are," replied. He sat on his bed and started unpacking. "We are the first humans here. They want to see if we are a threat or a joke." stood by the window. She could see the training grounds below. Obstacle courses, combat arenas, firing ranges. Everything looked big and dangerous. "They think we are weak," she said quietly. "Let them think it," said. She sat down and began cleaning her boots. "It is better that way. Surprise is a weapon too." There was a knock at the door. Opened it. Stood there. He was tall and thin with silver skin and eyes like polished stones. He smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "So you are the Earthlings," he said. "I am. I wanted to see you for myself." "And now you have seen us," said. "Is there something you need?" Laughed. "I just wanted to ask a question. How did your species even make it to space? You have no claws, no scales, no natural weapons at all. You are small and soft and slow. On my world you would be prey." Looked at him calmly. "On your world maybe, but we are not on your world, and we are not prey." Laughed again. "We will see, little human, we will see." He walked away, still laughing. Closed the door. She turned to find and watching her. "He is going to be a problem," said. "No," replied. She walked back to the window and looked out at the training grounds again. "He is going to be a lesson." Smiled. "A lesson for who?" Did not answer. She just watched the alien soldiers training below. They moved fast. They were strong. They had weapons built into their bodies, but had something they did not understand. She had grown up on Earth. She had survived storms that could tear buildings apart. She had trained in heat that could kill and cold that could freeze blood. She had learned to fight, to run, to endure, to never stop. These aliens came from soft worlds, safe worlds, worlds where nature was gentle and kind. Came from a world that tried to kill her every single day, and she was still here. Tomorrow the training would begin. Tomorrow they would learn what it meant to stand beside a human. Smiled to herself in the dark window glass. They had no idea what was coming. The first morning began with a loud alarm that shook the walls. Was already awake. She had been awake for an hour, doing quiet exercises in the small space between her bed and the wall, and were awake too. They had learned long ago to wake before the alarm. On Earth, sleeping too long could get you killed. The recruits gathered on the training field as the sun rose over the moon. The air was thin and cold. Many of the aliens were shivering and rubbing their arms, stood still with her hands at her sides. The cold did not bother her. She had trained in mountains where the temperature dropped below freezing. This was nothing. Sergeant marched out to face them. His yellow eyes swept across the rows of recruits. "Today we test your bodies," he announced. "Endurance, speed, strength, pain tolerance. These tests are designed to push you to your limits. Many of you will fail, that is expected. The weak do not belong here." The first test was a run. The recruits had to circle the training field 20 times. The field was large. 20 laps was equal to about 15 kilometers. "You have 1 hour," said. "Anyone who does not finish in time fails." The horn sounded, and the recruits began to run. Found her pace immediately. On Earth, she had run marathons through jungles and deserts. Her body knew how to manage energy over long distances. Beside her and ran with the same steady rhythm. Their breathing was calm and controlled. The aliens around them started fast. The recruits were quick, their small bodies darting forward like insects. The moved with long, graceful strides. The thundered along with heavy steps. But by the 5th lap, things began to change. They were slowing down. Their quick bursts of speed had burned through their energy. They were gasping and stumbling. They were breathing hard, their silver skin turning pale. Even some of them were showing signs of exhaustion. Kept running. Her pace never changed. She passed one alien after another. Some of them stared at her with confusion as she went by. How was this small human still moving so easily? By the 10th lap, half the recruits had stopped to rest. Some were sitting on the ground. Some were bent over trying to catch their breath. The medical team was treating 3 who had collapsed. Did not stop, neither did or. They finished the 20 laps in 34 minutes. They were the first 3 to cross the finish line. They were not even breathing hard. Sergeant checked his data pad 3 times. He did not say anything, but his yellow eyes stayed on the humans for a long time. The second test was strength. Each recruit had to lift a heavy metal block and carry it across a marked distance. The block was calibrated to be difficult for the average galactic species. It weighed about 200 kilograms. When it was turn, she heard some of the other recruits whispering. "She cannot possibly lift that," someone said. "Look at her arms, she is too small." Walked up to the block. She bent her knees, gripped the handles, and lifted. The block came up smoothly. She carried it across the distance and set it down gently. Then she turned and walked back to her place in line. The whispering stopped. Lifted the block easily. Lifted it with one hand just to make a point. Sergeant's jaw tightened, but he still said nothing. The third test was pain tolerance. This was the test that worried the least. The recruits sat in chairs while small devices were attached to their arms. The devices sent electrical pulses into the muscles. The intensity increased level by level. When the pain became too much, the recruit would press a button to stop the test. The average score for most species was level 4 or level 5. The test began, felt the first pulse. It was like a small pinch, nothing more. Level 2, a slight sting. Level 3, an uncomfortable pressure. Level 4, real pain now but manageable, had felt worse during training on Earth. She had felt worse during a bad headache. Around her, recruits were pressing their buttons. The dropped out at level 3. Most of the stopped at level 4. The made it to level 5 or level 6. Level 5, level 6, level 7. Sat still. Her face showed nothing. Beside her and were equally calm. Level 8. The pain was sharp now, like hot needles being pushed into her arm, but had been stung by insects on Earth that hurt worse than this. She had broken bones and kept fighting. She had burned her hands on hot metal and finished her work before treating the wound. Level 9. Looked at the device on her arm. Then she looked at the technician running the test. "Is the machine working correctly?" she asked. "I'm not sure I feel anything." The technician, a pale name, stared at her with wide eyes. She checked her equipment frantically. Sergeant stepped forward. "End the test," he ordered. His voice was strange, not angry, something else, something that might have been fear. The devices were removed, stood up and rejoined, and the other recruits kept their distance. That evening, heard that medical officer had requested access to human biology files. She had spent hours reading them. Apparently, she had not slept well that night. The next day brought combat training. Each recruit was paired with a partner for a sparring match. No weapons, only hand-to-hand fighting. Was paired with a named. He was considered one of the fastest recruits in the program. His species could move quicker than most eyes could follow. "I will try not to hurt you," said. There was no cruelty in his voice. He genuinely believed he was being kind. Nodded, "Thank you for the concern." The match began. Moved instantly, darting forward like a blur. His hand shot towards shoulder. If he hit her at that speed, her bone should shatter. But was not there. She had moved the moment he moved. Not as fast, but fast enough. Her hand caught his wrist. She twisted her body, using his own speed against him. In one smooth motion, she pulled him off balance, swept his legs, and pinned him to the ground. The entire move took 1.5 seconds. Lay on his back, staring up at the ceiling. He did not understand what had just happened. Released him and stepped back. "Good match," she said politely. The training hall was silent. Every alien in the room was staring at her. Sergeant walked over to medical officer, who was standing near the observation window. "What are they?" he asked quietly. Handed him a data pad. Her hands were shaking. "They are pursuit predators," she said. "Their species did not evolve to be the fastest or the strongest. They evolved to never stop. They chase their prey for hours, sometimes days, until it collapses from exhaustion. They can survive injuries that would kill most species. They heal damage that should be permanent, and their planet, she paused. Their planet has been trying to kill them for millions of years, but they are still there. They conquered it. Looked at the data pad. He looked at the three humans standing calmly in the training hall. They are not fragile, whispered. They are the most dangerous species we have ever invited into this academy. Said nothing. He just watched as helped to his feet and bowed respectfully to her defeated opponent. He was beginning to understand, and it terrified him. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived at the academy. In that time, everything had changed. The whispers had stopped. The laughter had stopped. Now when the other recruits looked at, and they looked with something between respect and fear. But Sargent was not satisfied. He had watched these humans break every record in the basic tests. He had seen them endure pain that should have broken them. He had watched them fight with a calm efficiency that made his best warriors look clumsy. And still, he did not understand them. He needed to see them fail. He needed to find their limit. So he designed a special test. The advanced combat simulation was held in a massive underground chamber that could be transformed into any environment. For this test had created an urban battlefield, ruined buildings, dark streets, hidden enemies. The goal was simple: survive for 6 hours. Most squads lasted 2 hours. The best squads in Academy history had lasted 4. Nobody had ever survived the full 6 hours. The simulation was designed to be impossible. It was meant to teach recruits that sometimes there was no way to win. Sometimes you could only accept defeat. Stood with her squad in the entrance chamber, and were beside her 2 recruits, Pell, and completed their team. They had been assigned to squad 3 days ago. At first, they had been afraid of the humans. Now they trusted them with their lives. Remember the plan, said quietly. Stay together, move carefully, conserve energy, do not fight unless we have to. The others nodded. The doors opened. The simulation began. The first hour was quiet. Led her squad through the ruined streets, avoiding the main paths. She found a defensible position in a half-destroyed building. From there, they could watch multiple approaches, set up medical supplies, check their weapons. Pell and watched the windows. The first enemies appeared at the 90-minute mark. Robotic soldiers with glowing red eyes marched through the streets below. They moved in patterns, searching for targets. Watched them carefully, memorizing their routes. We do not engage, she whispered. Let them pass. The squad stayed silent. The robots moved on. Hour 2 brought more enemies. The robots were joined by flying drones that scanned the buildings with blue lights. Moved her squad to a new position, always staying 1 step ahead of the search patterns. When a drone came too close, destroyed it with a single precise shot before it could send an alert. By hour 3 could hear explosions in the distance. Other squads were being found and eliminated. The simulation was getting harder. More enemies, faster searches, deadlier weapons. Pell was shaking. We cannot survive this, he whispered. There are too many of them. Put a hand on his shoulder. Yes, we can. Stay calm. Trust the squad. Hour 4. They were the last squad remaining. Knew this because the simulation changed. All the enemies were now coming toward their position. Hundreds of robots, dozens of drones. The streets were filled with red glowing eyes. They know where we are, said. Her voice was trembling. Then we move, replied. Now. They ran through the ruined buildings, climbing through broken walls and jumping across gaps between rooftops. Carried Pell when they twisted his ankle. Covered their retreat, taking down any enemies that got too close. Hour 5. They had found a new position in an old factory, but the enemies had surrounded them. There was no way out. In the observation room above the simulation chamber, Sargent watched the screens with growing frustration. This was supposed to break them. This was supposed to show them their limits. but the humans refused to break. "Send the final wave," he ordered. The technician hesitated. "Sir, the final wave is meant for the last 30 minutes. It is designed to be unwinnable, an overwhelming force that no squad can survive." "Send it now." The technician obeyed. On the screens watched as hundreds of new enemies appeared. They came from every direction. They filled the streets. They climbed the walls. They blocked every exit. In the factory saw them coming. She counted the enemies quickly. There were too many, far too many. The simulation wanted them to surrender. It wanted them to accept defeat. Stood up, she picked up a broken metal pipe from the floor. It was heavy in her hands. Not a good weapon, but it was something. Looked at her. "What are you doing?" "What I have to do." Understood immediately. She started to rise. "I am coming with you." "No," his voice was firm. "Protect the squad, keep them alive until the time runs out. I will buy you the time." "That is suicide," Pell whispered. Looked at him. She smiled. It was not a cruel smile or a sad smile. It was the smile of someone who had already made peace with what was coming. "Maybe," she said, "but I have done impossible things before." She walked toward the door. The sounds of the enemy army were getting closer. The building was shaking from their footsteps. Then Sergeant's voice exploded from the speakers. He was shouting, and his voice echoed through the entire simulation chamber. "Private Park, this is training, not a war. Stand down immediately." Stopped at the door. She did not turn around. Her hand tightened on the metal pipe. The enemies were seconds away now. She could hear them breaking through the lower floors. She reached up and touched the communication device on her collar. Her voice was calm, steady, cold. "Watch me." Then she ran out to meet them. What happened next was something that would be talked about in the academy for years. Did not fight like a trained soldier. She fought like something older, something primal. She fought like a creature from a world that had been trying to kill her since the day she was born. She broke the first robot with the pipe. Then she broke the second. When the pipe bent, she used her hands. She grabbed a robot's arm, tore it free, and used it as a club. When that broke, she found a sharp piece of metal and kept fighting. The enemies hit her. They cut her. The simulation damage appeared on her body as red marks and dark bruises. A real person would have stopped. A real person would have collapsed. Kept going. She fought through the first wave, then the second, then the third. She was limping now. The simulation showed broken ribs and a damaged shoulder. Blood was running down her face from a cut on her forehead. She kept going. In the observation room stood frozen. He had never seen anything like this. His officers were silent. Medical officer was crying, not from sadness, from something else, something she could not name. The clock showed 5 hours and 50 minutes, 10 minutes remaining. Was surrounded, enemies on all sides. She was standing in the middle of a destroyed street, barely able to stand, holding a broken piece of metal in her shaking hand. The robots moved in for the kill. Screamed, not a scream of fear, a scream of rage. A scream that said, "I am not done yet, I will never be done. You can break my body, but you cannot break my will." She threw herself at them one last time. The clock hit 6 hours. The simulation ended. The robots froze and disappeared. The ruined city flickered and faded. Stood alone in an empty chamber. Her simulated wounds were gone, but she was exhausted. Her legs gave out and she fell to her knees. The doors opened and ran to her side. Pell and followed, tears streaming down their silver faces. In the observation room, Sergeant finally found his voice. 6 hours, he said quietly. She completed the simulation. She completed the impossible simulation. Nobody answered. There was nothing to say. Looked at the small human woman kneeling on the floor of the empty chamber. She was smiling. Despite everything, she was smiling. And for the first time in 40 years of military service, Sergeant felt true fear. Not fear of an enemy. Fear of what humanity might become if they ever decided to stop being friendly. The news of his performance spread through the academy like fire through dry grass. By the next morning, every recruit, every instructor, and every officer had heard the story. The human who completed the impossible simulation. The small woman who fought an army alone and refused to fall. The other recruits now kept their distance from the three humans, not out of hatred, out of something much deeper. They looked at the way prey animals look at predators. They could not help it. Something in their ancient brains, something older than language or thought, told them to be careful around these creatures. Notice the change. She did not like it. She was sitting alone in the mess hall, eating a simple meal of protein and vegetables. The tables around her were empty. Other recruits sat far away, stealing glances at her when they thought she was not looking. Then someone sat down across from her, looked up. It was the who had mocked her on the first day. "May I sit here?" he asked. His voice was different now, quieter, humble. Nodded, of course. Did not eat. He just sat there for a long moment looking at his hands. Finally, he spoke. "I called you prey," he said. "On your first day here, I laughed at you. I said your species was weak. I remember. I was wrong." Looked up at her. His stone-like eyes were filled with something that might have been shame. "I have never been so wrong about anything in my life, and I wanted to apologize." Set down her food, she looked at him carefully. "Why?" "Because I watched the recording of your simulation. Everyone did, and I saw something I did not understand." Leaned forward. "You were hurt. You were outnumbered. You had no chance of winning, but you kept fighting. You kept going. Why? Why did you not surrender? Why did you not accept that it was over?" Was quiet for a moment. She thought about the question. It was a good question, an honest question. "On my planet," she said slowly, "there is no surrender. Surrender means death. If you stop running, the predator catches you. If you stop fighting, the enemy kills you. If you give up, the cold freezes you, or the heat burns you, or the storm tears you apart." She paused. "We learned over millions of years that the only way to survive is to never stop, even when it hurts, even when it seems impossible. We keep going because stopping is not an option." Stared at her. "That sounds exhausting." Smiled sadly. "It is, but it made us what we are." "And what is that?" "Survivors." Sat back in his chair. He was silent for a long time, processing her words. Then he nodded slowly. "I think I understand now," he said. "You do not fight because you cannot feel fear. You fight because fear does not control you. It is just another obstacle to overcome." "Yes," said, "fear is not permission to quit, it is fuel." That afternoon, Sergeant called into his office. It was a small room with metal walls and a single desk covered in data pads and old military medals. Sat behind the desk. He looked tired. "Sit," he said. The three humans sat. They waited. Was quiet for a long time. He seemed to be choosing his words carefully. "I have been a soldier for 40 cycles," he finally said. "I have trained thousands of recruits from hundreds of species. I have fought in 12 wars and survived things that should have killed me many times." He looked at them. "And in all those years, I have never seen anything like what you did in that simulation." Did not respond. She simply waited. "I underestimated you," continued. "When you arrived, I thought you were a joke, a political gesture from the coalition. Let the humans pretend to be soldiers. Let them fail and go home. It will make them feel included." He shook his head. "I was a fool." "You judged us by our appearance," said. "Many species do." "Yes, and I was wrong." Leaned forward. "I have spent the last 3 days reading every file I could find about your species. I have studied your history, your wars, your evolution." He paused. "Do you know what I learned?" "What?" asked. "I learned that your species has been fighting for survival since the moment you existed. You fought predators bigger and faster and stronger than you. You fought your own planet's weather and geology. You fought diseases that wiped out half your population. You fought each other in wars that killed millions. His voice was heavy. And after all of that, you are still here. You did not just survive. You dominated. You took control of your entire planet. You became the apex predator of a world that should have killed you 100 times over. The room was silent. I have one question, said. He looked directly at. In that simulation when you went out to face the army alone, were you afraid? Met his gaze. Yes. Then why did you do it? Because my squad needed time, because someone had to go, because fear does not change what needs to be done. She paused. On Earth we have a saying, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is being afraid and doing it anyway. Was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. I'm going to recommend all three of you for advanced placement, he said. You have proven that you belong here, more than belong. You have shown that humans may be among the most valuable soldiers in the coalition. Thank you, Sergeant said. Held up a hand. Do not thank me, prove me right. After they left his office, sat alone in the darkness. He opened a classified file on his data pad. It was a coalition military assessment of Earth and its inhabitants. Most of it was redacted, but one section was visible. A warning written in red text. Do not engage Terran ground forces without overwhelming numerical superiority. Recommended force ratio, 15-1. Terran soldiers do not surrender. They do not retreat. They will continue fighting until they are physically unable to move. Capture is extremely difficult. Killing them is often the only option, and even that is not guaranteed to be permanent. Several confirmed cases of Terran soldiers surviving fatal wounds and continuing to fight. Exercise extreme caution. Read the warning 3 times. Then he closed the file and stared at the wall. He thought about what it said. Fear is fuel. Stopping is not an option. He thought about what it would mean if humanity ever decided to go to war. Not a small conflict, a real war, a war of extinction. He thought about billions of humans, all of them carrying that same fire in their hearts, that same refusal to stop, that same ability to keep fighting through pain that should destroy them. Had fought many enemies in his long life. He had faced armies and monsters and things that had no name. But now, for the first time, he understood what it meant to face a predator from a death world. And he was very, very glad that humans had chosen to be friends. 6 months passed like a river flowing downhill. Some days were slow, filled with training and lectures and endless practice. Other days were fast, filled with simulations and combat exercises and tests that pushed every recruit to their limit. The weak ones left. The ones who stayed grew stronger. Of the 200 recruits who had arrived at the academy, only 58 remained on graduation day. All 3 humans were among them. Stood in the great hall of the academy, wearing the formal uniform of a coalition soldier. It was a simple design, dark blue with silver trim, but it carried the weight of everything she had accomplished. Beside her stood and beside them, in a formation that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago, stood and Pell and a dozen other aliens who had once feared the humans. Now they stood as family. The great hall was filled with light from massive windows that looked out over the moon's surface. Beyond the glass, ships came and went from the landing zone, carrying officers and dignitaries from across the coalition. This was a big day. Not just for the graduates, but for the entire galaxy. The first humans to complete coalition military training. The first to join the ranks. High Commander arrived in a ship that gleamed like polished silver. He was the oldest living, a legend in the coalition military. He had won wars that other species did not even remember. He had faced enemies that had no names in any language. And now, he was here to witness the graduation of a new generation of soldiers. Sergeant met the High Commander at the entrance to the Great Hall. They walked together through the rows of recruits, inspecting each one carefully. An impressive group, said. His voice was deep and slow, like rocks grinding together. You have done well, Sergeant. Thank you, Commander. stopped walking. His eyes had found the three humans standing near the center of the formation. He studied them with a gaze that had seen 1,000 battlefields. "Those are the Terrans," he said. It was not a question. "Yes, Commander. I read the reports. The female completed your impossible simulation." "She did more than complete it, Commander. She broke it. The simulation was designed to teach recruits to accept defeat. She refused to learn that lesson." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I thought Terrans were supposed to be fragile, small, weak." Shook his head. "With respect, Commander, I thought the same thing when they arrived. I was wrong. We were all wrong." "Explain." Considered his words carefully. "They come from their planet has been trying to kill them since their species evolved. Everything about them is designed for survival. They can run for hours without stopping. They can survive wounds that would kill any of us. They can keep fighting long after their bodies should have given up." He paused. "But that is not what makes them dangerous." "Then what does?" "Their minds," looked at, standing calm and still in her uniform. "They do not see limits the way we do. When we face an impossible situation, we calculate our chances and accept the outcome. When they face an impossible situation, they simply refuse to accept that it is impossible. They find a way. They always find a way." Was silent for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. "And if war comes," he asked, "what would you do with them?" Did not hesitate. "I would put them on the front line, Commander. If war comes, they are the ones I want beside me, not because they cannot die. They can. They are mortal like any of us. But they fight as if death is an inconvenience. They fight like every battle is the last one that matters. They fight." He searched for the right words. "They fight like they have nothing to lose and everything to gain." Considered this, then he walked toward the humans. Saw him coming. She stood, her eyes forward, her face calm, beside her, and did the same. The High Commander stopped in front of her. He was massive, almost 3 meters tall, with scales as dark as space and eyes that had seen more death than anyone could imagine. He looked down at this small human woman, this creature from a world of fire and ice and endless struggle. "Private Park," he said. "Commander," replied. "I have fought many enemies in my life. I have seen species that could tear ships apart with their bare hands. I have faced armies that numbered in the millions. I have stood against weapons that could burn entire worlds." He leaned closer. "And I have never been more curious about a species than I am about yours." Did not blink. "We are just survivors, Commander, nothing more." "No," shook his head. "You are more than that, much more. You just do not realize it yet." He straightened and addressed all three humans. "The Coalition is watching you. The entire galaxy is watching you. What you do next will shape how your species is seen for generations." "We understand," Commander said. "Do you?" Eyes swept across all three of them. "You are not just soldiers now. You are ambassadors. You are proof of what humanity can be. When other species look at you, they will see the future of your people. Make sure it is a future worth seeing." "Yes, Commander," the three humans said in unison. Nodded once. Then he turned and walked to the front of the Great Hall to begin the graduation ceremony. The ceremony itself was simple. Each graduate walked forward, received their insignia, and returned to their place. Whence name was called, she walked with steady steps to the platform. Sergeant placed the silver insignia on her uniform. Their eyes met for a brief moment. "You did well, Private," said quietly. "Better than well." "Thank you, Sergeant, for everything." Almost smiled, almost. After the ceremony, as the graduates gathered in small groups to celebrate, a young recruit approached. He was small, with large dark eyes and thin limbs that trembled slightly. He had joined the academy 2 months ago, part of a new class that would train under the graduates. "Excuse me," he said. His voice was barely above a whisper. "You are Private Park, yes, the human who completed the impossible simulation." Nodded, "I am." The young swallowed hard. He seemed to be gathering courage. I wanted to ask, is it true what they say about humans, that you can keep fighting even with a limb missing? Looked at him. She saw the fear in his eyes, but she also saw something else. Curiosity. Hope. The same thing she had felt when she first looked up at the stars and wondered what was waiting out there. She smiled. Not a cruel smile or a mocking smile. A warm smile, the kind you give to a friend. "We have done it before," she said, "and we will do it again if we have to." The young's eyes went wide. He nodded quickly, said something about being honored to meet her, and hurried away to tell his friends. Appeared outside. "You scared him." "I think I inspired him. There is a difference." "Not much of one with humans." Laughed. It was a good sound, warm and real. Joined them, and the three humans stood together, watching the alien graduates celebrate around them. "Do you think they understand now?" asked. "What we are, what Earth made us?" Looked around the great hall. She saw talking with Pell and all of them wearing the same uniform she wore. She saw Sergeant standing near the windows, looking out at the stars. She saw hundreds of species from hundreds of worlds, all of them united in a common purpose. "They are starting to understand," she said, "and one day they will know the full truth." "Which is?" Turned to face the windows. Beyond the glass, beyond the moon and the cold space, Earth was waiting. A small blue world in a vast and dangerous universe. A world of storms and predators and endless challenges. A world that had created a species capable of surviving anything. "The truth is simple," said. "Earth's children have arrived, and we do not break." Outside the windows, the stars shone like promises. Somewhere among them, there were enemies waiting to be faced, challenges waiting to be overcome, impossible situations waiting to be made possible. And somewhere in the great hall, three humans from us stood ready to meet them all. This was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning.